morning. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Mastery.
And I'm Erin Sullivan. Let's get right into our top 6 headlines at 6. Breaking tonight, Omaha police have confirmed 5 people, including a City of Omaha employee, are charged in a sex trafficking investigation. One of those charged, 39-year-old Amy M. Hicks, is a city accountant. Their charges include tax evasion, possession of child pornography, and keeping a place of prostitution. They'll be in court tomorrow morning.
Nebraska head football coach Matt Rhule signed a 2-year contract extension, putting his intentions to stay with the program long-term in ink. The extension comes as rumors swirled that Rhule was a top candidate for his open job at his alma mater, Penn State. After a meeting with Chinese President Xi, President Trump says China will resume buying U.S. soybeans. China had boycotted U.S. beans for months after Trump imposed steep tariffs on Chinese exports. In exchange, Trump agreed to lower some of those tariffs. And with SNAP benefits on pause for about 150,000 Nebraskans, Westside Community Schools now acting fast to keep their students fed. The district is scrambling to provide meals for about 500 of their families who are suddenly struggling to put food on the table.
Local businesses fear they could take a major hit from the pause in SNAP benefits as well.
The owner of Danny's Corner Store near Midtown Omaha tells First Alert 6 many of his customers pay with EBT cards or SNAP benefits. He says the ongoing shutdown is making him reluctant to fully restock his shelves. And President Trump says he's instructed the Department of Defense to start testing nuclear weapons on an equal basis with other countries. The U.S. hasn't detonated a nuclear weapon since 1992. Russia and China last did so in 1910 and 1996, respectively. But China, Russia, and the U.S. routinely test missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Well, we're on First